Godzilla is one of the most recognizable and iconic characters in all of fiction. And like any other iconic character with a decades-long legacy, he's gone through a series of tweaks to best fit the times in which he exists. He's had changes in size, color, and demeanor. He's been brought to life by actors in a rubber suit and rendered entirely in CG. But among all these changes, you can look at every variation of Godzilla and immediately know this is Godzilla. Except for this one. This version of the character goes by a few names: American Godzilla, Gino, Godzilla 1998, and most notably, Zilla. For better or worse, this incarnation of the character has carved out a distinct legacy. Today, we're going to talk about why. This is the history of Zilla. Our story begins in 1992. On October 29th of that year, news broke that Sony and TriStar Pictures had acquired the Godzilla movie rights from Godzilla's rights holder, Toho, with the intention of making Godzilla their next major franchise. In July of 1994, Jan de Bont, coming fresh off of his hit thriller Speed, was hired to direct. De Bont's version of the character was no longer the result of a nuclear experiment. This Godzilla was artificially constructed by the citizens of Atlantis to fight against a shape-shifting alien called the Griffin. Despite the backstory being wildly different, Stan Winston's Godzilla design for this movie still kept the spirit of what Godzilla looks like. This version of the movie entered development limbo when de Bont left the project in December of 1994 after TriStar refused his $100 million plus budget. That version of the movie would go on to fall apart entirely when Roland Emmerich signed onto the project in 1996 under the pretense that he could do whatever he wanted with it. He wanted to go in a new direction, so he scrapped everything: the story, the characters, and most importantly, Godzilla's design. I didn't want to make the original Godzilla. I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted to make my own. We took part of the original movie's basic storyline in that the creature becomes created by radiation and it becomes a big challenge. But that's all we took. Then we asked ourselves what we would do today with a monster movie and a story like that. We forgot everything about the original Godzilla right there. Emmerich didn't get rid of this Godzilla design just to make something that was his own. Emmerich wanted to entirely reinvent Godzilla, believing that the original Toho design, and presumably all of its minor variations, didn't make sense. Further elaborating, Jan de Bont created a Godzilla that was very close to the original, but it was not right because today we wouldn't do it like that. Emmerich hired Patrick Tatopoulos to redesign Godzilla, giving him only one design request. This version of the character should be able to run incredibly fast. What he produced was a radical departure from Godzilla's traditional design, feeling that trying to alter and improve upon the original design would have been incredibly disrespectful. Upon showing this redesign to Toho, Emmerich would later recall, they were speechless. They stared at it, and there was a silence for a couple minutes. And then they said, "Could you come back tomorrow?" I thought for sure we didn't have a movie then. The next day, Toho ultimately gave their blessing. This new design would be the one that would appear in the movie, its planned but unmade sequels, and the animated sequel television series. Godzilla hit theaters in May of 1998, and to say that it wasn't well received would be a bit of an understatement. Audiences saw the film as an uninteresting story with boring human characters, and despite the effects being seen as technically proficient, Godzilla's redesign and characterization were harshly criticized. The criticism to the film was so harsh, in fact, that Sony believed Godzilla 2 would make less money than the first one. So Sony tried to have Roland Emmerich tailor his story for Part 2 to fit within a certain budget range. As a result, he left the project, and the sequel died out in development hell. That Godzilla design and story nevertheless continued on in Godzilla the series, but after that came to an end in April of 2000, that seemed to be it. And for this version of Godzilla, it technically was. Then, 2004 happened. That year, Toho introduced a different version of the character into the Godzilla 50th anniversary movie, Final Wars. But it's important to note, this Toho version of the character, officially named just Zilla, is a totally separate character from the Godzilla of the 1998 movie, despite sharing the same design as that character. This was Toho's take on that same character. The rest of Zilla's appearances from here on out are specifically of this Toho version of the character. Toho very clearly had some harsh criticism of the American design, feeling that it took the god out of Godzilla. And Zilla's entire existence in Final Wars makes this feeling clear. He's made out to basically be a joke. He's openly mocked by characters in the movie, and is easily defeated by Godzilla in less than 20 seconds in a scene called Pretender to the Throne, in one of the shortest Godzilla fights ever put to film. Outside of a handful of magazine appearances and pieces of merchandise, Zilla would essentially disappear following Final War's release for about 9 years. Then in 2013, Zilla began appearing sporadically in 2 IDW comic series, at first in Godzilla Rulers of Earth, and later Godzilla Oblivion. From 2013 to 2016, he'd show up once or twice a year through the runs of these 2 series, sometimes as a mere cameo, and other times fighting Godzilla himself. During that time, he also made an appearance in the Japan-exclusive mobile game, Godzilla Kaiju Collection. His final appearance as of the time of writing is in a dedicated chapter of the 2017 novel Godzilla Monster Apocalypse, which is a prequel to the anime Godzilla trilogy of movies, where there are multiple Zillas, children and adults alike roaming an Earth dominated by Godzilla. Ultimately, I believe that time has been kind to Zilla. The farther removed we get from the 1998 film, the more love that this character seems to be getting. And I think that him existing as a separate character is a big part of the reason why. Because the character is far enough removed from Godzilla that trying to replace Godzilla with him doesn't make sense. But by that same token, Zilla is so far removed from Godzilla that his abilities alone make him a worthy kaiju to exist alongside Godzilla, Ghidorah, and all of the others. Between these unique abilities and his ever-growing contingent of fans, I suspect that Zilla will reappear somewhere in some form, sooner than later. But that's the story of Zilla, so until next time, thank you so much for watching, be good to each other, and stay Hemas.